Happy lunch hour, gang. All right, well, this ain't good news. One of the country's greatest fears, something that we've all speculated upon, I mean, not us on the channel, I'm talking about Americans as a whole, but something that preppers also worry about because we're about the only ones that even pay attention to this stuff, has come to fruition, believe it or not. We now have proof that the Chinese have plans to attack our grid. How about that? Okay. Story that was broken by Reuters is that, and I'll link it below so you can read it, but there's more information too. Rogue communication devices found in Chinese solar panel inverters. Yeah. So basically what you have is all these municipalities, states, wherever, that are converting their grid to solar. Yeah, they're opening themselves up to hacking. Now, this shouldn't come as any surprise. I mean, we've all talked about EMPs for years on this channel, but decades in the prepper community, that the easiest way to conquer the United States and the most likely way that the Chinese would do it, because they're pretty much the only country that would even have a snowball's chance in hell of conquering the U.S., is China. Okay? That they would have to do it by taking out the grid, letting us die off, and then taking over the land. Okay? Again, we go back to the book 1 second after, right? You know, the entire book, the entire western half of the United States is taken over by China. Granted, that's fiction, but it's based in potential reality. Yeah, this is the problem we get. It's the inverters that are going into these massive solar fields, you know, where we're generating all the gigawatts of energy from solar and then converting it to AC power from DC, and the inverters have micro communication devices in them that the Chinese can control. Not all of them, but we, the companies, supposedly have a firewall put into these inverters that would protect them from anything like that happening. Except these cellular service-based microcontrollers, they figured a way around the firewalls. Okay. So it tells you how susceptible our grid is, that literally China can go flip, and this entire city or zip code or state is all of a sudden in the dark, right? Now, the big question I came up with in my head immediately is, how susceptible are we, those of us who have our own personal solar systems? Now, obviously, I don't know everywhere to look, so I used AI to look this up. And I looked up EcoFlow and Opus and Dabson and Blue Eddy and Afery. And AI could find nothing of any proof that there was anything like this in personal solar generators. On the other hand, most of you who have them probably somehow have them hooked up to your phone, okay? Hooked up to the internet because you need to get firmware updates, or this is how you can switch from grid to solar or whatever. I mean, mine are too. Okay. When you have a technical issue, you give them the serial number and they can access the firmware of your generator. Sure, so we know that we are giving them permission to go in there. If something like this ever happened where China wanted to flip the switch, I'm just going to say it's probably a little easier to disconnect my house system from the internet and reboot the system and have power within a few minutes without any internet connection than it is to disconnect an entire city or an entire state and reboot the entire system. I'm betting that's probably a little bit more difficult. Okay. So I checked into it to see how feasible this is. I'm not saying it's foolproof, but it's something to consider. Because if they do shut down the grid, I want some option to have power. Hence the reason I've said many times as well, having a gas generator for backup as well, because that's mechanical. So, my gas generator has no internet connection to it. You're not getting into it. Just a thought on something like that. But then the bigger question comes up to this is, why are we even bothering with all this solar stuff? Well, because if there's a bad idea that's ever been thought about, the liberals act upon it, okay? You've heard me say for years, solar is a great idea for the individual. It's an idiotic idea on large scale. And that's all come to proof too, because now we have new studies that have been released that solar and wind power are the most expensive to run a grid on and the least reliable. But then the environmentalists will come up and go, but we need clean energy. Natural gas is the cheapest, most reliable, cleanest energy there is. But no, we don't want that because, oh my God, you've got to get that out of the ground. Okay, the second cheapest, safest, most reliable energy is nuclear. Oh my God, we can't do that. What if we had another 3 Mile Island? 3 Mile Island was what, 1979? Okay, you had Fukushima. That was what, 10 years ago or something like that? You had Chernobyl. Okay. Chernobyl was a total different reason. Fukushima was a total different reason. All right, so we've had 3 nuclear accidents in 45 years. Okay. Living is dangerous to your health. That's all I'm going to say on regard to that. We're all going to die. Like I said this morning, when your time's up, your time's up. Doesn't make a difference. Somebody will say, oh, but nobody's died from solar energy or wind energy. Really? Would you take a look at the stats of people that have been working on the windmills that have fallen off? Would you take a look at how many people who have had accidents with solar panels on roofs have fallen off? Don't give me that crap either, okay? Yes, there's danger in waking up in the morning, period, okay? So it's just a little word to the wise to pay attention to. Your grid is not as good as we even thought it was, as how bad it is, how old and outdated it is. It's even more susceptible by the fixes they're making. I'd rather have the old grid, that at least couldn't be hacked, easily. This one that's like switch, some guy on a computer, poof. Southern California, you're black. Okay. What happened? I don't know, ask the Chinese. Rather have the old grid that, oh gee, you got to go through brownouts, okay, at least we can schedule those. It's not, some rogue CCP agent going, you know what, pissed me off that so-and-so didn't get nominated for an Oscar. Click. Right? I don't like the tariffs. Click. Trump pissed me off. Like I care. Click. Okay, this is about it. And then, of course, we find out about low reliability, highest cost, etc., etc. I'll link it all below so you guys can read all this sort of stuff. It's pretty eye-opening. Okay. Keep prepping, keep doing what you're doing, because God knows the elected officials we have are doing everything they can to empower themselves at your cost. Pinball out.